book 2. I decided to share the classics book tag because I really enjoy classics and I think they should be read more. Let's get into it. As always, all the informations are down below if you want to check that out. The original video as well as the questions all linked. The first question is an overhyped classic you really didn't like, and for me that is Emma by Jane Austen, which is my least favorite classic I read so far, at least at the time when I read it. I want to reread this relatively soon to try and see if I like it better now. And the other classic is Great Expectation by Charles Dickens, which I also can't seem to finish because I started it a couple of times, a handful of times really, I think 4 or 5 now, and I never made it even halfway through before having to put it down because I just couldn't get into the story. So those two certainly overhyped classic I don't really like. Question 2, favorite time period to read about. And I don't really have a favorite time period to read about. I do have a favorite country in a way and that is good Russian classics. So if I had to pick a favorite country or where the author is from, I definitely would pick Russia. I really do enjoy the Russian classics, even if that is kind of out of the norm for readers. Question 3, favorite fairy tale. And that question is just, I can't answer that question because I don't have one. I can't stand fairy tales and never liked them, even as a child. My mom always says that's a favorite story to tell, that I started to scream when she started to read fairy tales because I hated them so much that I didn't want to hear anything of them. So yeah, I do have one favorite part, and that is from Cinderella, the original Grimm's fairy tale, where, if that is a spoiler, I'm sorry, but this book has been out for quite a while, so I don't really count it as a spoiler, but in the original German fairy tales, the stepsisters cut off their feet so to fit into the glass slipper, and pigeons tell the prince that there is blood in the shoe. My mom always made the most fantastic pigeon sound when she told that story, so I like that part, but I never enjoyed any other fairy tale. I didn't like them at all. Let's just move on. Question 4. What is the classic you're most embarrassed of not having read? And I'm not embarrassed about not having read anything. I'm really not. I think reading is something so specific that, and I'm really a mood reader, so if I'm not in the mood, I'm not embarrassed about not reading it at the time, so I'm not embarrassed about not having read it because I'm just haven't been in the mood for it, because I still have time. Will be reading then, hopefully someday. Question 5. Top 5 classics you would like to read soon. I would really like to finally read War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. I had this copy for years and I tried to read it a few times. I even read it once, but after finishing it I was just horribly confused about the entire thing. So yeah, I want to read this and see if I have a better handle on it now. The others are Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, because it has been quite a few years since I read those two. And then I also want to read The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins, which I heard fantastic things about, and so I want to give this a read as well. And then I also want to read Moby Dick, which I don't own. Question 6. Favorite modern book or series based on a classic? My favorite book based on a classic, if Sylvia Plath Belger counts as a classic, is Belshaar, I think it's said, or you say Belger, I'm not completely sure. And that is by Meg Wolitzer, which is a wonderful book, and I think it was inspired or based on, or just, it has a lot to do with the Belger, so I'm just going to say it is a book based on the book because it kind of is, so it counts. It is about a girl who has to go to a therapeutic boarding school to recover from the death of her boyfriend, and while she is in that school she's reading the Belger and she just finds it very therapeutic and wonderful experience to have with her during that time, and I really love that book. It was a wonderfully done book. Question 7. A favorite movie version or TV series based on a classic. I'd see The Man in the Iron Mask when I was a child and I didn't hate it, and I saw the version with Gerard Depardieu, and interestingly enough with Leonardo DiCaprio, found it quite funny if I remember correctly, especially Gerard Depardieu did a wonderful job in that movie, so yeah. And while it's interesting that Leonardo DiCaprio is in it, I will answer in the next question, but if you have any recommendations for a favorite movie version or TV series based on a classic, I would love to hear it. Really want to watch a few, but I don't really know where to start because there are so many. And so yeah, I would love if you leave me some recommendations in the comments and I will check them out. Question 8. Worst classic to movie adaptation, and for me that is Romeo and Juliet's, the Leonardo DiCaprio version, which is why the Man in the Iron Mask is interesting, since I have 2 Leonardo DiCaprio classic movie adaptations. One I kind of like and the other I really hate, which I did not plan, but you know, that happens. Question 9. Favorite edition you like to collect more classics from? I really like those editions which sadly are no longer available or being made, but I really think they're very fitting. This is Emma by Jane Austen, which I already shown, Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert. I just think those are very fitting classic covers. I also really think the Puff and Chalk editions are very cute. They have deckled edges and those flappy things, and it's very cute. I also really like the Fitzgerald's edition of Penguin Classics, which I really like, and yeah, I want to have more of those. And lastly, I have the World Cloud Classics, which I also really love, but this one especially is very tiny writing. It was just hard to read, but the book opens really nicely and the pages are thick, and yeah, I love the end papers, and I love that there are quotes on the front and it's embossed, and it's very nicely done. And the last question, question 10, an underhyped classic you recommend to everybody, and for me that is the Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka, which I have the German edition, Die Verwandlung by him, because I read it in this edition. I really recommend it. I find it is a very original story. It's very short. Is it even 100 pages? It's just slightly over 100 pages. It's a very fast read. It's so cute and quirky and unique, and it's just a wonderful story about a man who turns into a bug, and it is just as quirky as it sounds. And I think too few people read Kafka anyway. I recommend this book, but Kafka overall I just find him quite unique and quirky to read. And that was the classics tag. If you have any favorite editions or favorite movie, TV show adaptations, please let me know in the comments and I will check them out. I always need more of those. And if you liked this video, I would love it if you give it a thumbs up and maybe even subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!